This is a Technicom podcast.
In our constantly evolving digital landscape, it is expected that purveyors of technology maintain certain responsibilities. After all, these groups have the ability to do good or harm, or influence others to do good or harm. This evolution is a valid argument for the integration of ethical decision-making into the strategic management of technology projects. I'm Peter Ballant from Technicon, and I'm happy to bring you this special podcast series entitled Ethics and Technology, a prerequisite for European research. In this series, we will look at ethics in the context of cybersecurity, personalized healthcare, and many more disciplines. We will talk about attitudes towards ethics, and we will examine how ELSA is increasingly becoming part of the framework in EU-funded projects. As we have heard in previous episodes, responsible ethics is more than ticking boxes on a form. And no one knows this better than Conçalo Cadete. He's an internal auditor for ELSA in the Sparta project. He joins us today from Inhofe in Portugal. Inhofe specializes in information and communication technologies, and they are project partners in Sparta. Welcome, and thanks for coming on today, Conçalo.
Thank you, Peter.
You are an internal auditor in the Sparta project, meaning that you report on ethical issues. And when we spoke offline, you told me that there were quite a few project resources dedicated to responsible ethics. And this tells me that ethics cannot be ignored in EU projects. And in a project like Sparta, which is largely a technology project in the domain of cybersecurity, what specific ethical issues are being addressed?
Yes, correct, Peter. So ethical, legal, and societal aspects in Sparta, which we call ELSA, are absolutely fundamental. They are indeed embedded in 4 work packages out of 14. There's one work package 1 that regards governance. So that means that ELSA is embedded in the governance framework. So that's a very important thing. So it's not just something that's an appendix or something that we thought after that. It is really embedded. Then we have work package 2, which is a specific work package to develop and ensure ethical, legal, and societal aspects. We also have a task in another work package, which deals with ensuring gender and diversity issues. And finally, we have an initial work package that concentrated on specifying ELSA requirements. So ELSA is really big in Sparta.
And a good thing, because this is a really huge project with over 44 partners. And regarding ethics, it has been said that ethic principles in responsible research must be embedded in EU projects. And looking forward, how can the EU ensure that this happens in the future, and how can you measure something like this?
I think Sparta is maybe a success story in this respect, because we have very specific mechanisms to provide assurance. So it's not only making sure we have a few assessments, etc., but mechanisms for providing assurance. How did Sparta do that? So first of all, we focused on a few issues. So fundamental rights, that's one big important class, privacy and ethics requirements, gender and diversity, and ultimately achieving responsible research and innovation. So what did Sparta include in the description of work? Yearly audits. So that's one very important mechanism. And interestingly enough, the audit reports are public. So that really shows the commitment of the European Commission towards transparency. So they are published. We are now in the 3rd and final year of Sparta, so anyone can look at the first 2 yearly reports. They can look at the outcomes, at the conclusions, and they can even as we now have 2 reports, look at the progress. So that's very important. That really engages people and as I mentioned, provides transparency. It's not every project that has public, so sensitive public reports. The other thing is, besides this yearly audit, Sparta defined that there should be a continuous monitoring mechanism. So Sparta implemented a help desk with a very, very simple and accessible interface. You just have to send an email with the content that you wish, with a question, with some complaint, and that was never the case, but it could be done. It will be recorded in a ticketing system, and all the issues must be raised to an ethical committee. So we also have specific organizational structures to provide assurance and to escalate any ethical issues. Finally, within the context of that privacy help desk, we have built what we call a privacy frequent asked questions document, a privacy FAQ. So it's a sort of lessons learned and a very easy to read document on all issues concerning ethical, legal, and societal acceptance topics.
So you're saying that you actually had a help desk sort of environment set up specifically for some of these ethical issues. Is that right?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, wow. So do you think that will be a model for the future?
Yes, absolutely, because it provides assurance to people that first there's something official in place. So you don't just, if you have an ethical issue or a question regarding some ethical issue, right, you want to know how to behave in a certain situation or how to manage a conflict of interest. You don't just send an email to someone without an official process tied to it. So you have assurance that there's a mechanism in place. It may be used, it should be used, and issues will get escalated in a professional way. So I think that's very comfortable for everybody. So far in Sparta, we maybe luckily didn't have to escalate any issues. But all the pieces were in place if that was required, or if that is still required, because we still have some time until the end of the project.
Yeah, that was really excellent planning on the side of ethics in the Sparta project. Yeah. Now, when it comes to technology-related projects such as Sparta, how do we integrate ethical thinking into applied research and development? It seems like some pragmatic approaches would have to be employed.
Oh, yes, absolutely. So our ultimate goal is responsible research and innovation, right? Providing assurance for the European Commission and the people, the Europeans that are actually financing these projects on two aspects. So the first aspect is how we conduct our daily activities, right? So there are many partners from any member nations that want to be treated fairly, right? Not only in terms of the distribution of work, if it's interesting, if it's valuable, if we are working in an honest way, the outcomes when we publish papers, etc. So there's a whole lot of, so to speak, internal issues in the way we work together, in the way we are strong in diversity, right? So that's working ethics. Now, the other aspect is the actual outcomes of what we do, things like artificial intelligence solutions. Are they embedding something that is against the values of Europeans? I mean, are we, for example, in artificial intelligence, are we somehow training and testing our algorithms with the unacceptable bias, gender bias, racial bias, nationalistic bias, whatever, right? So we want to ensure that we are ethical in these two aspects.
And that makes complete sense, of course. And you speak of outcomes. Let's look at this for a moment. In your experience, how can bottom-up communications in the ethics realm effectively reach the top, especially in an environment where if something is not in the description of work, it may not get done?
Good point. Actually, one of the mechanisms that we implemented that we just talked about, the privacy help desk, is a very specific implementation of a measure for bottom-up feedback. So I think that's an interesting one. It did not get a lot of traffic, Maybe that's good in a way. Maybe that it may also be a sign that people are not used to bottom up approaches. So maybe an area for opportunity in the future.
Let's look at conflict for a moment. Is there an area of conflict between cybersecurity and ethics? And then how do you deal with this kind of issue?
We did not have big issues at Sparta regarding areas of conflict, but we came up with an issue that we identified during the audit in the first year. It seems to be solved in the second, but I think it could be an interesting lesson for the future. And it relates to the internal side of ethics, so how we work together as Europeans coming from different nations and different partners. And the specific issue is small partner versus big partner. What does that mean? When we have all sorts of organizations working as partners, some very powerful, with big budgets, big lobbying power, right? Which is not a bad thing. It's just a fact, right? And so it's something that does come up, right? The relation of power and how that affects the perception of fairness. So small partner, big partner is something to watch for in the future, making sure that everyone feels that they're having a fair treatment, a fair share in the burdens, in the costs, in the benefits.
And I think for a large project like Sparta with 44 partners, this idea of equity for all partners is an important facet in moving the efforts forward in a responsible way.
Absolutely, yes.
Thanks for giving us a glimpse of how ethics looks in an ongoing project. It was great to hear about some of your success stories as well as challenges.
Thank you, Peter. Appreciate it. Thanks for the invitation.
Join us next time as we look at the world of software and hardware engineering in the EU. We will look at how efforts in law enforcement and forensics are aided by not only new methods and tools, but also by ethics principles. See you next time. This podcast has been brought to you by Technicon. The Sparta project has received funding from the European Union's Horizon 2020 Research and Innovation Program under grant agreement number 830892.